After the special ASUCI presidential recall election, which occurred this past January, NUU has reached out to the newly elected ASUCI president, Yoseph Ghazal. Join us as we learn more about him.
Hi Yoseph, thanks for joining us and congratulations on your ASUCI president special election. What was your first thought when you heard the news that you were elected?
That's a good question. I think I was just relieved that all of the stress is finally over. I had already been in ASUCI. A lot of people had been watching this carefully, both in and outside of ASUCI. All the campaigning, all the work that went into it, all the months of planning this out, I think I'm just relieved that it was all done.
Who's the first person you told the news to?
My friend Keanu came over and was like, we're going to get food regardless of what happens as a result. We're either going to be really sad and eat some Persian food or be really happy and still eating Persian food. And so my friend Keanu was with me when I found out the results. I also let my housemate Alex know too, because he just happened to be there as well. For
a student who may not know that you are now the new and current ASUCI president, what's a welcome message you would like to tell them?
A welcome message I'd like to tell them is that, my time is limited here on this campus. And I want to make sure that I do as much as I can while I'm here. So first of all, I'd like to welcome you to ASUCI. ASUCI does a lot for students that people might not recognize. And so what I'd encourage people to do is if they have any issues on campus that they want to see resolved or worked on, to contact me or contact people in ASUCI.
What were some factors that led you to want to run for ASUCI president during the special recall election?
I already had been doing a lot of this work. I've been in ASUCI since my first year on campus. I'm a fifth year now, so it's been a few years. And so because I knew how everything worked, I've already had some connections with people in the office. I felt that if there were to be a new president, it'd have to be someone who already knew what to do from day one. But I felt that if I had been declared as president, that the transition would have been much faster.
How did it feel to receive more than 10 times the number of votes in comparison to your fellow running mates during the special election?
Honestly, it was a bit shocking. I wasn't expecting to receive so many votes like that. I think a lot of it was just because of just my team that helped me campaign and the message the message kind of aligned with what the students wanted.
What kind of leader do you want your peers to see you as?
I'm not entirely sure actually, but I do think that I want people to see me as someone of action and not someone who makes false promises. I want to be known as someone who really cared for the student body and the student voices and that was easily accessible.
As a result of starting your presidency in January 2022, how do you plan to complete all your platform goals before the end of the 2021 through 2022 academic year?
So a lot of things have already been in progress. I'll give one example. With SPFB funding, that I had promised to spend $60,000 by the end of this quarter. It is kind of a reach goal. However, there's a good chance we actually do hit that 60,000 goal by the end of this quarter. You're going to see a crazy number spent by the end of this quarter that will by far beat out the, I think, $989 that was spent fall quarter. So that's an action that has already been done. My main goal is to build trust from the student body to student government and student government to admin so that students are comfortable with coming to us for their concerns.
How do you hope your ASUCI commissions team and your UCI students will help you keep and stay accountable throughout the school year?
So I meet with my commissions weekly, and then I meet with the entire OP team every 3 weeks. My commissions have been doing some incredible work, even with things being flipped from online to in person and back and forth. Every single commission I could confidently say has been putting in good effort in my time that I've seen them in office. A lot of that, to kind of go back to the question, a lot of confidence and trust has been built with my commissions, and I've put high expectations and they've fulfilled those high expectations. The amount of integration and the collaboration and connection, things could always be improving, and we're continuing to build those connections and relationships, but I think it's been a great first month with all those commissions.
Have you been facing any obstacles as of yet as the president?
Of course there have been a lot of obstacles. When someone comes into a new office, I can't expect trust to be given right away. I expect trust to be earned. But also, I think one of my biggest obstacles is learning how to navigate school administration when it comes to advocacy efforts, and learning very quickly what's realistic and what's not when it comes to policy changes that could happen. And so what I've learned basically is for every yes that I'm going to get, there's probably 20 no's that I'm going to get for other things that I'm going to do. I think there's a lot of this expectation for a president to come in and make changes from day one. And thankfully, I have made some changes from day one, which is a bit unprecedented. But there is still a lot to learn when it comes to advocacy on the UCI policy level.
How have you transitioned from starting your presidency online 4 weeks into the quarter and to now in person?
So I'm kind of used to, flopping back and forth because I've been in ACCI when things were in person. I was a senator when things were online, and I became a senator again when things were in person again. And now president starting when things were online, and now president in person. So I've kind of just gotten used to it. It's like, if I'm here, I'm here. If I'm online, I'm online. But I think when it comes to in person, I really have enjoyed that I've been able to have more of a presence here on campus. I'm interacting with people on Ring Road. I'm attending events and going to booths. My office is open all the time. If anyone wants to stop by my office, I literally have a water boiler and I have a bunch of tea. I'm always making tea for people. I've made probably like 40 cups of tea in the past week. So I want to extend that offer to anyone who's watching this video. Obviously, online comes with its challenges, but there's also some advantages to it too, And so trying to navigate hybrid spaces when it comes to that. Ultimately, just trying to balance online and in person, because some people just can't come back to campus, and I want to be accessible for people who can't return to campus too.
In terms of your presidency, what implications will you make to increase mental health services on campus?
So my mental health commission right now has kind of been working on a lot of different projects. We have the mental health conference that's coming in spring quarter. Recently, UCI received funding from the state of California, which will boost mental health resources. One of the potential policy changes that we were looking into was mandating professors to put on their syllabus a list of resources on campus, and so that'll help students easily access the different mental health resources on campus, as well as their different academic accommodations and things like that, but to kind of tie that into mental health resources. And so those are just some of the many ideas, and all credit goes to the Mental Health Commission for that. Most of the ideas I get are from them, so I just want to give them a shout out for that.
Last year, the ASUCI 2021 spring election received the lowest turnout in UCI's online voting history. Do you have plans in place to address or reform this for future ASUCI elections?
Ultimately, building trust is the way we're going to get higher voter turnout. There's really no advertising push that could be done to fix the numbers right now.
Can you give us any insight into anything big that ASUCI has planned for the future?
In terms of, I could talk about big events. I know my Student Experience Commission right now is planning a prom. A lot of students were in high school who came to UCI, and that's like 2 generations of students now, never had a real prom. And so they're trying to plan this big prom event where students could come in and say they could get their prom experience, and probably a better prom experience than they would have gotten in high school anyway, because we have more money to fund it. So there's a lot of big plans coming for that. The Mental Health Commission, they're putting on their big mental health conference in spring quarter. A lot of big events are coming in spring quarter. Obviously, we have the bi-quarter vendor fair. There's other night markets that are going to happen. Just kind of name a few. A lot of the campus culture kind of comes from the things that we put on. And so those are some of the big events that are coming in terms of the more fun stuff, you could say.
How has your previous experience in ASUCI shaped your experiences as a leader?
So I'll talk about kind of the thing that radicalized me in ASUCI was that 2019-2020 Senate. I was serving on the Elections Commission at the beginning of 2019, but I had never been formally appointed into my role. And eventually, they kind of did the sneaky move where they just never appointed me. I never got paid for my work. And they appointed some of their friends into the World Elections Commission, which is supposed to be an unbiased section of ASUCI. And so to me, recognizing that this corruption had happened, recognizing that there has been corruption in the past and all these different controversies, I was like, I'm always complaining about ASUCI, but why don't I actually do something about it? And so I ended up running for Senate that year with this slate called Anteaters United. And it kind of was this big reform. There was really this change in the mindset of ASUCI, where we're no longer just this glorified ASB, but more of an advocacy group. I was looking back recently at, there's like this big stack of papers in the president's office with some of the advocacy things that they were working on 10, 15 years ago. ASUCI has changed so much since then. And so as controversial as ASUCI has been recently, and even through the past few years, the shift has gone from ASB to student government, where it is a government that we're advocating for students, and we're doing a lot of things that are for the benefit of the student body in these past few years that I've seen. To kind of go back to the question though, it's kind of shaped my perspective on student government is that there's kind of 2 sections of it, where we're planning events, and that's a huge part of student government, and then there's also the advocacy, and my job, a lot of it is that advocacy. So just doing everything I can to uplift student voices when it comes to advocacy efforts.
Could you share your favorite part about being ASUCI president?
I think my favorite part is, now that a lot of people know who I am, I feel like it's very easy to have conversations with people on campus. I'm able to engage and ask, what can I do for you? What could the ASUCI do for you? How can I build your trust? That's kind of been my favorite part, is the connections I've been able to make. Like I'm sitting in my office, in such a huge chunk of my day is just sitting in that chair, waiting for people to come by. I think it's just been so great to be able to interact with students at a level like this. I've never been able to interact with people just as a regular student. It truly is a privilege, though, and that's why I want to make sure that I do my best when I talk to these students to make sure that they get their needs across to me. That's been my favorite part, I could say.
Could you then share what a typical day looks like for you?
There's no such thing as a typical day. There's just so much chaos and so many random meetings and so many things happening all at once. But to share, I guess what could be a typical day, I wake up, I have meetings. I come to campus, sit in my office, talk to some people, I have meetings. But there's so much chaos that's happening. There's always some big thing that's going on that I'm having to deal with. I feel like I'm always having to put out fires. So there's no typical day, but on the typical day-to-day tasks is probably sending emails and sitting on meetings.
As a fifth-year computer science student, what inspired you to pursue the major?
I think there's a lot of power in technology and being able to do a lot of good for the world through technology. Technology has this negative stigma right now where, you think of companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook kind of bringing the destruction of the world, right? And, they are. And so what I want to do in tech is to kind of counter that movement, to counter the negative tech, and to bring a positive light to technology. I think that's the biggest reason why I want to do computer science.
Why did you choose to attend UCI?
I think the biggest factor in attending UCI was the campus community. When I think of other of the name brand schools that you think of, a lot of the competitiveness is the process of being competitive is bringing down students. And so the UCI, the Anteater community, is all about bringing everyone up with them. When people are working their way up here at UCI, they're not doing it while pushing people down. They're bringing people up in the process. And so what I really like about UCI is that there is that balance where I'm able to reach my fullest potential and do that with everyone else coming up with me. So it really is the Anteater community that's drawn me to UCI.
If you could go back and tell your first-year self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Stop being in your own head. I think I've gone through such a mental struggle coming here into UCI, transitioning into college and working my way through these past few years. I want to tell first-year self that people don't care about you as much as you think that they do, and they care about the actions that you take and the things that you're working on. Everyone's going to make mistakes their first few years in college, and be okay with making those mistakes, and instead of trying to avoid and sheltering yourself, make those mistakes and work on them and build yourself up. And I tell that to any first year. Explore all your opportunities on campus. Join a bunch of different clubs, find your interests, and keep exploring, because I feel like I kind of wasted my first couple of years just kind of sitting around and being so insecure instead of letting myself get to my fullest level.
Prior to attending UCI, you were a part of your high school's Muslim Student Association. What would you say is your proudest moment as a Muslim American?
Oh, wow. My proudest moment as a Muslim American. I don't think I could pinpoint a moment where I could say is my proudest moment as a Muslim American, but I will say I think a lot of people that I've met through my time in UCI did not know about Islam or have never met a Muslim in their entire life. And so I think the way that I interact with people, kind of my morals and the way I carry myself, is a way for people to learn about how a Muslim should be. And so I think I'm proud in the way I've kind of built my personality and my moral structure. A lot of people have gained a positive image of Muslims in Islam because of the way I've interacted with them and the way I've tried to do my best to follow the teachings of Islam, to live the way I live because I am a Muslim, if that makes sense.
Could you share us one phrase you can say in Arabic?
Oh, okay. Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be with you. I sign on my president's email. I sign all my emails. That's like an initial email with peace be with you. And in my email signature, I put peace be with you, and then in parentheses, assalamu alaikum, and then the Arabic writing of it. It is such a powerful thing because it is the way that Muslims greet each other no matter what language they speak. Assalamu alaikum, you're greeting your fellow Muslims and even non-Muslims with a peace be with you every single time that you're interacting with them. And so that's my favorite phrase in Arabic is Assalamu alaikum.
How do you use your platform to bring voices to students who identify with these groups as well as students who identify with other underrepresented groups on campus such as LGBTQ+ and indigenous communities?
For me, I always feel like I'm not doing enough because I mentioned earlier that I'm not one for performative activism. I care about genuine action, and genuine action takes a lot of time. With the things I mentioned with the Liaisons Council, what I want to do is if I'm going to take action on something, I don't want to just make up things on my own and take credit for what groups want to see on campus without consulting them first. So for me, my goal is to talk to these communities and see what they want and only echo their voices without interjecting my own opinion into things, because too long have people in their activism spoke on behalf of different communities. And so my goal is to only echo their voices instead of speaking on their behalf.
Do you have a role model that you look up to?
I don't ever see people as good or bad, which is why it's difficult for me to think of a role model. I think, everyone has their good moments and bad moments. But if there is someone who's as close to what is defined as a good person as possible, I would say it's a good friend of mine named Misbah, who is also a teacher of mine, and she's a grad student here. I would say she is my biggest role model on campus. When it comes to things like, how to handle activism and advocacy, when it comes to my own personal growth, I think a lot of that factors into my interactions with Misbah here on campus.
What is one random act of kindness you've seen on campus?
I've seen on campus. Let me think about that, because I've seen a lot, but I don't remember specific instances. I'll sometimes write them down on my phone too, but I'd have to dig deep in my notes app to find that. I do remember one time there was someone who was crying in the corner of Ring Road, and a complete stranger had approached her and was just trying to consult her and sit down and talk to her. And I only caught the conversation briefly because I was just walking by, but it seemed like that person didn't have anyone to listen to them. And for that stranger to just go approach this person and talk to them, I think it also kind of really highlights how the UCI community is in general. I think it was a really nice random act of kindness that I saw on campus.
Congratulations again on your election, Yoseph, and thanks for chatting with us today.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.